in this Nick Drake tribute. Malcolm had called recently and asked me to discuss some of my involvement with Nick's music. And I guess I first became involved in his, in hearing his music just around the time of his death, or shortly thereafter. His first two albums had not been released officially in the U.S. at that time. Five Leaves Left and Brighter Later. They were issued here in the U.S. on a compilation album simply entitled Nick Drake, and immediately drew critical attention. Stephen Holden reviewed this compilation in Rolling Stone magazine, but success was elusive during his lifetime. Anyway, the surprising thing to me was that I had been aware of virtually every act under the Witch Season umbrella, that being Joe Boyd's project, bands like Incredible String Band and Fairport Convention, but luckily the Incredible String Band were released on Elektra in the U.S. Each one of their albums came out on Elektra. Fairport had made a deal with A&M Records, so they were much more accessible and were given a good deal of radio airplay back in the late 60s, so that these were bands that were familiar. But even the more obscure artists like John Martin and the McGarrigles, people that Boyd had worked with, they were people that I was familiar with. And when I finally heard Nick Drake, strangely enough, the first tune that I did hear was Time Has Told Me, the first piece from Five Leaves Left, his first album. And I was immediately hooked by what every critic had responded to regarding Nick's music as being quite haunting. And that quality captured me, and I was able to locate the Island imports, which, as I said, at this time had been issued in the U.S., but were very hard to find. But I tracked them down, and then discovered, to my dismay, just a short while later, that he had already died. But his popularity continues to grow, not only in the U.S. and the U.K., but all over the world. And I think it's a tribute to the labels that do keep his material in print, regardless of the commercial success that he may or may not achieve, because it's just incredibly gorgeous music that everyone responds to. And I don't think I have met a single Nick Drake fan who is not a complete Nick Drake fanatic. Just as a way of how I became initially familiar with Nick, it was through these channels and through the obscure article that I would come across, and then, as I said, sadly, soon after, would learn about his death at the age of 26 in 1974. Okay, at this point I wanted to talk a little bit about the unusual tunings that Nick employed. I don't want to get too technical, because I had been asked to write an article for Frets magazine regarding the tunings, and there were basically 6 suspensions that he utilized. And suspended tunings were something that were fairly uncommon, at least to my ears, at this point in time, with the exception of the D-modal tuning, the DAD-GAD tuning that so many guitarists have used for years and years. But when I began to sit down with the music and start to work out the guitar tunings, I was really amazed at the language that he created, very personal language, his guitar playing being very difficult to reproduce. Now, at about this same time, I had organized a radio tribute to commemorate the Island box set at WFMU, in East Orange, New Jersey, and we had a number of guests on the show that were very familiar with Nick and with his music. And we each performed several pieces, and it was a 3-hour program. And somehow that program made its way back to Rodney and Molly, Nick's parents. And they were very touched and very excited about the program, and got in touch with me. And that began a correspondence that lasted until